How did I know that I was autistic? The short answer of that is I absolutely didn't. In fact, that's probably why it took 25 years, because not only did I not think that I was autistic, but those around me did not think that I was autistic. That might sound like a really funny thing to say, like how did I not know, when the experience of autism is quite drastic compared to a neurotypical brain, but the reality is I was born in the 90s, and that time period there just wasn't a lot of talk about female autism and how it can look quite differently to the stereotypical male traits of autism. This is something that I wanted to share today, kind of going into my experiences, how I felt growing up, being undiagnosed autistic, and how my life has changed since I have finally been given my diagnosis. So I was probably around 6 months of age when my mum has said she could see a difference from her child and other babies. I was just operating a little bit differently to most, and she described it as being almost like anxiety. At the time, there were boxes coming into the home as my mum and dad decided to move, and she noticed that I could pick that up. I was aware and I was unsettled because of that. From there is home video footage that my parents recorded of me doing this like track, the same track. As I'm learning to walk, I had this little trolley and I would use it to balance, to move, and I would do the same track the whole way through the lounge to the kitchen, and then I would come to this mirrored glass oven and look at myself, notice myself. Obviously there were some brain processes going, and then I would do the same track back and repeat that, and I never steered off that track. I have heard in recent years something from my nana, and she actually had 7 children, so she had quite a lot of kids, and she has said that she had never seen a more determined child that was wanting to walk. And so from what I have gathered now, having had this diagnosis, is the neural pathways were there. You know, I was trying to find safety, my own form of certainty, even as young as like a year old. So I have a younger brother who was actually born with a congenital heart disease, and basically what that means is from birth he has been, in hospitals and having surgeries, and he's doing amazing, all good, no sad point to share there. But what that meant was when I was a child, we had nurses, doctors coming into the home, and it was my mum who said to these nurses, like, he's doing good, it's his health is doing okay, it's this one who needs the help. The talk of the time in the 90s, from what I've been told, is that mothers were very concerned, very aware of this word called autism, or Asperger's, as that was the term that was used back then. And it was kind of one of those hush-hush things that were talked about on the playground, does your child have Asperger's? It was a term that my mum learnt through the playground mums, and so it was something that she pursued, something she wanted to know more about, and asked professionals to actually see, was her child autistic? The takeaway from that at a young age was that no, I did not. The thing that doctors, psychiatrists believed was wrong with me was that I had anxiety. This stemmed from having family members in hospitals, obviously witnessing my brother right out of the womb being put into hospitals, and I saw him attached to cords and, quite big stuff for a young child. And so they believed that the extent of my issues were anxiety. I know that this is quite a collective experience for those who have been undiagnosed autism. We are often given every other diagnosis but the one that it actually is. So I started seeing a therapist at age 6. I could say I felt more of an adult back when I was a child in some ways than I do now. I was very aware of being spoken down to, being spoken to like a child, and I often wondered why adults spoke to me like this when I was very, very aware of what they were saying. I didn't need the baby voice. I didn't need to be, crouch down, are you okay, little girl? Like, I really got angry by that. And so this first therapist, I lied my way through the therapy. I had no idea what the point of seeing this woman was for, and I felt that I could outsmart her, and lo and behold, she actually ended up having to discontinue my visits to her because she said to my mum, I just can't get through to that girl, like, she just lies. I was not good at school. I guess where who I am differs from the autistic stereotypical traits is that I wasn't clever at school. I had to try really, really hard, exceptionally hard, in order to pass. I had friends. Did I feel connected to them? In some ways, but a lot of ways no. But yes, I had friends. I could deliver eye contact. I could appear just as any neurotypical child appeared. But I guess where it differs from a neurotypical child is that the internal experience was so different. I have always been aware of where I was in the world, how I appeared to the world, how I spoke, if I was taking up too much space. I was known as being very, very shy. I don't know if it was shyness after all these years. I don't know if it was because I was shy. I think I was shit scared of the fucking world. I was trying to make sense. I look like everybody else. I'm doing the same things as everybody else, but everybody else doesn't seem to be dying inside quite like I am. I have a very, very stubborn mind, and that stubborn mind made sure that no matter how much I was suffering on the inside, which I would say was every single day at school, I was suffering and I had to hold it together. And there was just no authentic interactions, I feel. It was a dance, it was a mask, it was all an act. And as I grew older, this acting, this masking completely turned into exhaustion and not understanding why life felt so, I don't know how to describe it, but it just, I guess I didn't see the point of living if this is how hard it is. Because of this stubborn mask that I wore, I actually didn't know who I was. I knew that most of the time my reactions were not authentic to how I truly felt, but I actually don't know, possibly in some way I still don't, who I actually am without that mask. All through my childhood, meltdowns were very, very present in my home life. Every single day, the moment I got home from school, I would unleash this beast, unfortunately, on the closest person to me, and that was my mum. I found it hugely soothing to scream and to yell and to act out because I was finally heard. I was finally looked at and acknowledged, and it's possibly the thing that I feel the most guilty about in my life is how my poor behaviour has affected my mum. Even how I say that, my poor behaviour, like I'm telling myself off even still. It's not that it was poor behaviour, even though it absolutely looked like that from the outside. It was just wanting to find myself in some part of the day, and it was wanting to feel safe in my body at some point in the day as well, and that's, I guess, the only way I learnt to find some control. So with these outbursts, my life was almost divided into two parts of me, I guess, even further. There was the home version of me that was incredibly poor behaved, who struggled with a relationship with her parents and her sibling. And then there was the school part of me, which was so incredibly well behaved, listened to everything, did everything that was asked of me, maintained the friendships, maintained the schoolwork. It was a debilitating experience the whole way through from age 5 to 18, but I managed it and I maintained it through a very, very stubborn and strong mask. Over time, I started to feel really inauthentic. I started to question if I was incredibly manipulative, and I know that, again, this is a common thing. I didn't know what my problem was. I continued to see therapists from the age of 6. Still now, got a current therapist right now, but there was always this longing for an answer as to why I was born this way, what is wrong with my brain. I can vividly remember saying to my mum, screaming, crying to my mum, saying, if I die, and I didn't have much hope that I was going to live, but if I die, can you please get my brain looked at after I die, just so you can have the answers, Mum, as to what was going wrong with me. And I just think, I was a child, I was an early preteen when I was asking these questions of my mother. I grew up incredibly fast because of the misdiagnoses. So I was diagnosed with every anxiety diagnosis you can get. Completely, I feel riddled with anxiety, absolutely, but I just never felt that encapsulated everything of who I was. That then went to OCD, needing to control my environments. And then as I grew into a woman, depression was the last thing to be added to the list, I guess. The funny thing about all of this is I studied psychology, which, again, having an interest in people is another extremely common thing. And I even learned about autism. And even when I learned about it, I still did not think, that sounds like my experience, because even then, and this was just in, 2015, 2016, even then the description of what autism was from my lecturers, it was still very much Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory. No, I do not at all appear that way, so there was no way that I thought that sounds like me. I'll tell you what I did think out of, this psychology degree that I was working toward. I questioned narcissism. My therapist said, if you're questioning whether you're narcissistic, you're not narcissistic. And it was like, oh, okay. But it was still an emptiness, still this consistent daily fear of walking outside, of not keeping up with milestones, of wondering when life got fucking better. I didn't think that I was going to live till old age, honestly, because I thought I wouldn't be able to hack it. My heart would give out. There's too much stress that I live with on a daily basis. And the meltdowns, the breakdowns were a monthly thing. And I'm not talking just like a cry, like existential crisis every single month. That's really lonely. And I just went back there for a second. I find these videos strange to talk about because I imagine the people who know me in real life and who have known me for maybe many years. I wonder what they're thinking, because they no doubt saw me in the masked version of myself, and then hearing this other, the true extent, the true reality of my life. I just wonder what they think. I am the epitome of someone who lived a double life, who wasn't authentic, who changed my viewpoints to fit in with others, who adapted to her environment just so she wasn't caught out with how much she struggled. So you can imagine, with all of that being said, the incredible, indescribable, life-altering news that someone said autism. The news of hearing that I was on the autism spectrum, I didn't cry, but others around me cried. I guess because it provided answers. I got apologies from my mother for her not knowing and wishing she could have done better with that information when I was a child, which is really sad to think about, because I don't blame her at all. The whole world didn't know, I didn't know, but life could have been so much easier. And this is why my mission, my purpose now is to actually make this process quicker for people. If they find my videos, if they see my content, I'm putting out a book, I want the knowledge to be there for other families, because I'm going to be 28 next week, and I could say that the last 3/4 of being 27 has been the first time in my life where I've actually felt the most in control of who I am in my life. I've felt the first true emotions of happiness. I felt confused as fuck, but I've sought out answers, and I feel that I'm on the right track. Finally. Man, it's taken so long, and I just don't want anybody else to feel how I felt growing up. I don't want someone else to go, why the fuck was I born? And that's what I wanted to share today. And I'm really, really hoping that this video finds somebody who's in a dark place, who maybe can relate to a couple things I said, or maybe can relate to a lot of emotions that I've shared. If you have related to the things that I've said, I make so much neurodivergent autism content on my other social medias. I will leave a link to them down below. Please just know that it actually does get better, and I say that as someone who probably couldn't say that confidently ever until this point. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've made it this far, it means fucking the most amazing thing in the world. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. Bye.